All right, so hope everyone is doing well in terms of your holiday sales. One of the things that I know from a lot of our clients is that maybe Black Friday this year was not the greatest. CPMs are super high for a lot of folks. Although one thing that I have actually heard from quite a few clients, and actually we see ourselves as well, is actually CPMs are actually a lot lower recently around right now, which is obviously good for your ad costs and ROAS as well. So hopefully everyone out there, whether you're trying to go for Christmas shipping or not, are having great sales and are scaling up through the remainder of the sales season. Now, obviously, there is a concern around how you manage the actual Christmas cutoffs and how these flight delays have an impact on it. So obviously, we'll talk about that as the main topic for today. All right, so we can just go ahead and get started. I can just put this live link in this notes here. And again, if you want to get these notes, please just comment notes in the comments below and we'll get that sent over to you. All right, so the big news for this week is over the weekend, there has been a notice from couriers that there has been rather significant, unexpected cancellations in cargo flights. So here's an article for background that I pasted here. So I'm just going to go through this article that we found. So this article is specifically talking about Cathay Pacific, which, if you don't know, is actually one of the main carriers, or actually is the flag carrier for Hong Kong. So on last Friday, Cathay Pacific has canceled a third of its flights because of the impact of the Omicron coronavirus variant. And I'll go a little bit deeper into this because it's not necessarily the direct impact, but more of a preemptive action to avoid any issues. So I'll talk about that. Now, one of the issues though is that there previously only passenger flights would be canceled in this case. However, as for Cathay, they actually canceled 5 out of 15 cargo only services. Now, this is only data on Cathay Pacific. There's a lot of other cargo flights out there, but just generally speaking that there are unexpected delays in terms of cargo flights, which previously hasn't really happened even during COVID. During COVID, a lot of passenger flights or most passenger flights were canceled. However, cargo planes were still running as expected. Now I'll tell you guys why this has been happening, and it's quite unique this time. All right, so basically here, I'm going to zoom in a little bit. So obviously it's impacted by Omicron. I'm sure everyone out there has heard about Omicron already and some potential impacts around the world. Now, it's not necessarily that Omicron has affected Hong Kong directly. There were a couple cases in Hong Kong. However, it was actually more of a fear that their crew is going to get stranded or have to face quarantine when they actually come back. So right now, there is a situation where, let me see, where's the map there? So here's actually a list of all the countries. I mean, it's really focused more on Africa, but the fear is that more countries are going to go on this list where, given Hong Kong potential Omicron restrictions, they are going to require flight crew to actually quarantine for 14 to 21 and 14 days of quarantine. So air crew would have to quarantine for 14 days if arriving from one of these higher risk countries. Now, the thing is, these higher risk countries, they don't necessarily include, some of the main countries that we are concerned about, like, US, like UK, like most of Europe, for example. However, what the airlines are fearful of is that they send all of these flights out, passenger flights and cargo flights included. And during that process, while the flights are already outside of the country, there's going to be increasing restrictions on quarantines when they actually come back into the country, which means that flight crew is going to be actually grounded for at least 14 days. Now, this is a very big problem for them, obviously, because they don't have enough crew to actually support running operations if there's these unexpected quarantines. Now, an immediate question might be, so for example, let's just talk about the UK. The UK is going to be one of the the most regular cargo flights, let's just say that, okay, maybe the UK doesn't actually have a quarantine requirement, or Hong Kong doesn't have a quarantine requirement for flights coming through the UK. However, that's not exactly how a lot of these flights work. A lot of these flights, like, they don't necessarily just fly to one destination and back. A lot of these flights, they fly to multiple destinations before they fly back into Hong Kong, which means that just because there's an outgoing cargo flight into a safe country doesn't mean that they don't have a route that actually crosses a country that is potentially higher risk. So this is really the reason why these airlines are afraid that there's going to be unexpected situations where their flight crew either gets stuck or they have to face prolonged quarantine on the way back. So this is a preemptive measure for them to cancel a lot of these flights to prevent that situation. Now, right now, these are really just preemptive actions. So right now, the situation is that we don't exactly know that if this is going to be an ongoing situation, if there's going to be more flights canceled, if the current flight cancellations are going to come back, if this is going to be temporary. This is something that unfortunately no one knows. And as probably everyone here realizes and appreciates by now, things that do with COVID and its impacts have been just very unpredictable over the last couple of years. So really the unfortunate news is that no one knows exactly. And our couriers have warned us preemptively of potential disruptions of, around 3 or more days, which obviously is a big concern to everyone as we're thinking about Christmas shipping, and especially because a lot of the Christmas cutoffs were actually this past week or going into this week. All right. Now, I want to tell everyone this to be very transparent of this situation, not to scare everyone. And I do want everyone to know that we've been doing our homework and speaking with our couriers, and we do believe that the situation is not quite as bad as it immediately might have seemed. So let's first talk about Yunexpress and 4PX, which is what the majority of our clients use, and hopefully this is what the majority of you guys use as well, because these two are going to be the most reliable services if you're targeting Christmas delivery. Obviously, if you're not really targeting Christmas delivery, then maybe these couple of days delays don't really matter too much. Now, the good thing about using Unexpress and 4PX, and especially Unexpress, actually, they've been really good at this, is that they have a lot of experience dealing with COVID last year. They have a lot of, they primarily use pre-booked cargo flights, not like just open market cargo. By open market cargo, I just mean that there's a lot of just outgoing air freight going out where basically anyone can just bid on it, and a lot of couriers use that as well. However, Unexpress and 4PX, they primarily have pre-booked cargo flights. Unexpress particularly has a lot of just reserved flights for them. And so far, these have been far less impacted by the open market cargo flights. And a big reason actually is that a lot of times these kind of just pure cargo services, like not like on like an airline like Cathay, for example, they actually do not have a similar issue exactly the same as Cathay, for example, where they have like planes going into multiple routes, 3, 4 destinations before coming back to Hong Kong. A lot of these like pure cargo flights, they are more often to have more direct routes, just flying to UK and back, for example. So this is why kind of like these pure cargo lines are not quite as impacted as some of the passenger airlines that also operate cargo flights. Now, still, I would say that just to be safe, still expect maybe roughly 3 days delays or so in the regular and ordinary lines. And I think that this is probably a relatively conservative estimate. Our couriers are actually generally telling us like not to worry too much because they have pre-booked cargo flights. However, I always think it's good to be conservative when thinking about logistics. So I think just expect maybe roughly 3-day delay or so on these lines. Now, one thing though is that a lot of folks out there might be starting to use the Unexpress Express lines because those are the options we'll kind of talk about later actually, where you're able to actually extend your shipping cutoffs because they are more reliable and they are generally more consistent and faster. Now, they tell us and we are relatively confident that there should be very minor impact on the express lines. The main reason is because, I mean, this is why we actually always recommend using express lines, like for last minute Christmas shipping, if you can afford it, is because they always get top priority on getting on planes. So unless there is a situation where literally like all the flights are getting canceled, which by the way, I mean, look, there is a possibility that there are a lot more flight cancellations, and I think this is going to change things as well. But unless that happens, there's still flights going out, which means that the express lines are going to get top priority on that, which means that just generally speaking, like they will not they will likely not be impacted very much. So if you are planning to use express lines, then I don't think that the impacts will be very much at all. However, definitely still temper your expectations a little bit, because the other thing that we want to be aware of is that this is kind of assuming that the situation doesn't get significantly worse from here. Obviously, in a worst case situation, for whatever reason, like all cargo flights are canceled, which I think is almost like a black swan event. I don't think that's really going to happen, but it could get worse than this. So again, this is really just assuming that nothing really gets significantly worse from here. And obviously, if it does get significantly worse from here, definitely keep an eye out in this group, and I'll make sure to let everyone know as soon as possible. Now, one note though is that if you're not using Yunexpress or 4PX, if you're using, I mean, there's so many like random China shipping lines out there popping up. This is where you're going to see probably the biggest significant impacts on your shipping times. Now, we generally don't really use those lines, so like we don't really have data on those, unfortunately. However, this is something that you have to be aware of, that most of the other shipping lines, they simply just don't have enough volume to actually pre-book these pure cargo flights in the same way. And most of them are going to depend on the open market for freight, which means obviously as the open market gets disrupted, like in this situation, this is where they're going to see a lot less consistency in, you know, their shipping time. So outside of Unexpress and 4PX, if you're using anything else like Yanwen, for example, or any other just random little China shipping line, this is where you might want to reach out to your supplier, like see what impact this might have on your situation if it goes through Hong Kong, especially. Now, there's a question of, okay, what about lines that don't actually go through Hong Kong? Are they going to be faster? They go through mainland China, for example. I don't think so, to be honest. I mean, the thing is, like, if there is any disruptions through Hong Kong, then, well, so first of all, many products require going through Hong Kong anyways. So first of all, if your product has like electronics, for example, like it has to go through Hong Kong anyways, you know, so there's no way around it. However, like even if there is a way to be sent out in mainland China and normally sent through Hong Kong, or the line is normally through mainland China anyways, we do actually still we still expect potentially significant impacts as well, because what happens is if the Hong Kong routes get disrupted, not just China couriers, by the way, but then just air freight in general, in a rush to get out, they're going to try to get rerouted to other airports in mainland China as well. So this is something that, like, just because something is getting sent out of mainland China, I don't think that you should feel safe that you're going to be buffered from this impact, as this is something that is, being, like a quite a significant impact in the cargo capacity going out. And the other thing as well, by the way, in terms of like, mainland China. The other thing as well as mainland China is that, now that Hong Kong is taking these measures, it is also possible, very possible, that mainland China might lead to these measures as well. All right, so yeah, I mean, it's we don't really have like too much data on this. However, I just think that, just be aware that just because your product is getting sent out of mainland China, it probably is not just completely avoiding these issues going from Hong Kong. Now, one unfortunate impact this might actually have is potentially another price increase. I mean, I think that I've been telling everyone that you probably should expect more price increases until Q4 is actually officially over, or at least the peak sales season. However, I think that just given the supply and demand crunch this creates, this could very well lead to another price increase, maybe faster and more significant than we expected. We don't know this yet. Obviously, I'll update everyone if this is the case, but just given our understanding of supply and demand and market economics, we do think that there is a higher possibility that this is going to cause another price increase. All right, so now we're going to talk about the impacts on the Christmas cutoffs. So actually, before we continue, everyone here, welcome. Please comment below if you have any questions on what we're discussing, and make sure also to comment notes in the comments if you want to get this document as well. All right, so now we're going to talk about the impacts on the Christmas cutoff. So I put this link in here. This is updated from last week. So I'm not going to go through all of this in detail. We have previous webinars talking about this. So as you guys have seen, a lot of these cutoffs for regular and ordinary especially, they were like right before or right around like the past weekend, Monday or Tuesday or so. For example, the United States was on Sunday, for example. Now, there's obviously concerns about what this potential delay actually impacts what these cutoffs mean, and are your packages going to be significantly delayed to past Christmas? Now, I honestly can't just guarantee this. However, we feel like generally that this is going to be okay. I mean, especially if you sent it out already, there's generally nothing else that you can do anyways. However, as a reminder, we actually did put in a 3 to 5 day buffer on the slow end of our calculations in order to estimate these Christmas cutoffs. So for example, for the United States for regular, our previous data showed that the 90% of packages got delivered in 15 calendar days. Our estimated cutoff is December 5th. Now, actually, that 15 days plus December 5th, that's actually December 20th, right? And now we're assuming targeting Christmas delivery as in by December 24th. So that's actually a 4-day buffer that we already placed on the recent shipping time data. And the reason why we did that and estimate these cutoffs is obviously exactly to counteract a situation like this if there is a major supply chain disruption. So, and actually for ordinary lines, we actually put a 5-day buffer as well. So generally speaking, if the cutoff is passed, I mean, this situation actually happened just this last weekend. So for example, some of these cutoffs were already like November 30th, for example, or like December 1st. If these were sent out way before the weekend, like, that was not really impacted anyways. It's really the cutoffs that are maybe between December 2nd to December 6th, December 7th or so. But I think that generally speaking, especially given what we learned from our couriers, if you're using Yunexpress or 4PX, we still feel like these cutoffs are still reasonable, especially if you've been sent out already, because we added a 3 to 5 day buffer depending on the line based on our experience already. Now, obviously, I think that we should, it is still wise to temper your expectations. We will keep everyone updated, particularly our own clients as well. We will make sure to keep an eye on these batches of tracking numbers that are past the Christmas cutoffs, that everyone's expecting Christmas delivery, so that if there are any notable delays, we'll definitely let you know, so you know how to manage effectively to your customers. Now, as of now, we do believe that the express line cutoffs should be okay. So here's our express line cutoffs. Depending on the country, there are still actually quite a few countries actually that or actually a couple countries that still have some time as well. Generally, we still feel like these should be okay because of the fact that express lines always get priority getting on planes. Now, again, there is still a chance that there are going to be more significant cancellations, more significant delays. So I would generally think that, again, these are all recommendations. However, it is definitely wise to temper your expectations. If you want to be safer, maybe just, set a cutoff like 1 or 2 days early, for example. I think that this is something that, again, these are all recommendations based on our experience. This is not a guarantee, and there is obviously a situation where there is a worst case scenario where a lot more cargo flights get canceled and maybe express lines get impacted as well. And just a reminder for everyone who is not working with us, these are the lines that we use. They're shipped from Shenzhen. So if you're using any other lines, if you're using other suppliers, please work with them to figure out the situation, because it might not be the exact same situation. All right, yeah, so that's the main update that I have today. I'm gonna actually go to our Facebook chat for this event and answer some questions. And anyone else who had any questions, please comment below and I'll make sure to address them. So there's a question in our event from Joshua. I've been dropshipping for around 2 to 3 years, sometimes on and off. I'm looking to learn how I can scale a product during this winter while having the customers receive it in time for Christmas. All right, Joshua, to everyone else here, the reality is too late. It's too late to scale a product this winter, like right now, if that's what you mean, in order to have your products arrive in time for Christmas. I mean, we're already talking about like the shipping cutoffs, like most of them already passed for the regular lines. The express lines have a couple days more, but really this is going to be no time at all for you to be able to actually scale up a product and ship in time for Christmas, because obviously you need some time to scale as well. So unfortunately speaking, it's going to be too late for this winter. Now, obviously, like, you want to plan for next year. So if you want to learn more about it, we actually have quite a few modules about just planning for Q4 in general in our free course. So if you want to get that, comment course below and we'll make sure to have someone send that to you. So unfortunately, not the best answer for you, Joshua, if you're thinking about this winter. Another question, Aaron, sorry if I mispronounced your name. I have a question. I registered for Yunexpress for the very first time with my US LLC, and the registration is under process. As I'm dropshipping from China, will I be able to schedule pickups even for 1 to 5 packages weighing 0.5 to 1 kilogram? If not, what are other procedures I can adopt to schedule pickup from my supplier? All right, so I think there's a couple of points here. First of all, I have never actually heard of Unexpress actually working directly with a US LLC, to be honest. They usually just work with China businesses directly, but obviously if it works, and it's totally fine. However, the thing is, for something like Yunexpress, and actually particularly Yunexpress, is that they really specialize in working with high volume types of clients. And now when I talk about clients, I'm not talking about like end drop shippers. I'm talking about clients like EcommOps or other suppliers that has huge numbers of volume, like thousands, tens of thousands of orders per day. And this is where they are able to schedule pickups. For us, for example, especially during peak season, we usually schedule 3-4 trucks sometimes to make sure that we get all the packages done on time. However, if you're talking about 1 to 5 packages, or even I would say even hundreds of packages, anything under maybe 1,000 packages regularly, I really doubt that you are able to actually schedule a pickup from Yunexpress, at least regularly. What you might actually have to do is figure out some way to actually send your packages to them. It really depends on where your supplier is actually based, obviously. I think that if your supplier is based in the main Yunexpress operating area, which is Shenzhen or the Dongguan area, then it is potentially possible that you get as part of the route for a couple of packages. But most likely, if you're thinking about that kind of volume, and again, anything under the high hundreds of packages, I don't think that you can really expect that Yunexpress is going to be able to pick up from you, at least regularly, or consistently at least. So this is something that if you want to use Yunexpress, honestly, you should most definitely work with a supplier, because working with someone like Yunexpress, the thing about Yunexpress is that they are great, generally speaking. However, like they are very much more of a B2B kind of company. They very much prioritize their largest clients, which means that like for us, for example, like, you know, we actually have someone on our team, like, you know, just managing Unexpress, managing, you know, 4PX, and we have like just ongoing conversations with their VIP rep. And I think that you really need to have that level of interaction and relationship with them in order to actually use Unexpress the most effectively. So, you know, when people say like use something like Unexpress, like definitely do not like just assume that you can just set it up and use it. It's not going to work like that. It's definitely not like something like USPS, for example. You just pick up a couple of packages. Unexpress is very much a commercial B2B oriented kind of service. And actually, just related to that point, I think this is also where when we see a lot of complaints about, oh, Unexpress is actually not as good as I had hoped, well, that's probably because your supplier is not actually using Unexpress correctly. It's because they probably don't have that reliable relationship with them to be able to schedule regular pickups and to be able to deal with that volume of orders effectively and, you know, process it very quickly. All right, so those are the questions that we received from the chat group. Now, anyone else, if you have any comments or questions, please ask below and I'll make sure to answer for the next few minutes. And then so one just heads up, looking forward, next week, we are planning to do a live training on planning for CNY. Next week is December 15th at the same time. Oh, actually, let me just write this down, Wednesday, 11 a.m. Eastern, December 15th. And if you want to make sure that you get invited to this webinar, please comment CNY below in this thread so that Camilla can send you the link to that when that's ready. So actually next week's webinar is going to be really, really important for you to attend if you're thinking about, and you should be thinking about Chinese New Year's, by the way, because here's a situation with Chinese New Year's. Chinese New Year's this year is February 1st, all right? February 1st, and usually couriers take like roughly like 10 days or so of break, including the weekend. So let's just assume the 25th to like the 5th or something like that. It's not certain yet. The bigger problem actually is that factories are actually closed off for much longer. Sometimes some factories are going to be closing off by like end of December or early January. So if you want actually fulfillment to still happen, like the 10 days or so that couriers are off, that's really not that big of a deal if you manage your customer expectations accordingly. Because if you think about it, like there's that 10-day period. However, it's only like the first 5 days or so of orders that your customers are going to get the worst delays. And then the second half, they're going to get fulfilled anyways. But that requires you to actually have stock plan, to have inventory plan to go through this process and make sure that you work with your supplier to make sure that they're sending out as late as possible and sending out again as early as possible, which basically means that if you want to plan to sell through Chinese New Year's and keep your ads on, you got to be planning like soon or like now. So this year Chinese New Year is a little bit early, so unfortunately it's one of those years where you got to actually start planning for where you have to start planning for Chinese New Year's like as early as possible. So definitely try to attend the webinar next week, December 15th. We're going to talk about and provide a live training on the details of how you should think about Chinese New Year's planning to make sure that you successfully sell through this period. Because, you know, why should you continue to sell through Chinese New Year's? Well, assuming that you have a product that's doing well, you don't want to turn off ads, you know, because everyone here knows that if you touch your ads significantly, if you scale down because you have no stock, then who knows exactly how they're going to actually react after Chinese New Year's is over if you start to scale up again. And obviously the other benefit as well is that a lot of people are actually going to be shutting down ads through Chinese New Year. So if you are planned, if you have planned accordingly, if you have stock prepared, if you have a way to fulfill as fast as possible, then you actually potentially have a huge advantage where everyone else might be scaling down their ads. Aaron, actually, I already answered your question on working with Yunexpress. I think that maybe the video might be lagging a little bit. So just watch the rest of the video, and I already answered your question already. All right, well, so I think that we're good to go for now. Hope this information was useful for everyone. Again, very unfortunate situation with the flight cancellations, but I will make sure to keep everyone updated if the situation gets worse. If you don't hear from me, by the way, it means everything's okay. All right. I'm definitely going to say something if there are significant issues or more negative updates. But if you don't hear from me, just don't worry about it. It probably means everything is okay. But do keep an eye on this group. And anyone else, if you have any questions, just you can feel free to still comment below, and I can see to answer them afterwards as well if you're watching this live later. And again, if you want to get notes on this document, comment notes in the comments to get this. And next week, plan to show up for our webinar with our live training on CNY. All right, everyone. Well, thank you guys. Again, this is Dai from EcommOps. See you guys next time.